Hi, this is Greg with Stepcraft Support. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Step 15 in the assembly manual, the machine alignment. Our goal with the machine alignment is to make sure that each axis travels at 100% jog speed, the full length of its axis. An important thing to note is that the Stepcraft 2 desktop series comes equipped with NEMA 17 motors. These are stepper motors, and like any other stepper motor, they don't have any digital feedback loop to tell them where they are on the machine. The first thing we do after building our machine is to home the machine, which runs each axis towards its limit switch, effectively telling it where it is on the machine. Here we have a Stepcraft 2 840 system that when homed for the first time bound on the Y and X axis. Let's take a look. If you've never run your machine before, this is what it should sound like at 100% jog speed. If you're setting your machine up for the very first time, you may experience some binding issues, which sound like this. To begin our alignment process, we're going to remove the machine table and loosen all screws on the front and back plates. Now we have 4 M6 screws, 2 on each side. Loosen each of these up. Now we don't want these to be too loose where you're getting horizontal movement back and forth on the plate. We only want vertical movement up and down on this plate. So you can see here our plate is moving up and down, but there's no horizontal movement. That's the looseness we're looking for. On the back side of our machine, we're going to remove our belt cover. And we have our limit switch wires here. We can carefully disconnect those. And just like the front, we have 2 M6 on each side and 1 M5. We're looking for that same looseness where we get vertical movement on the plate, but no horizontal movement. You can see there's our vertical movement there. And vertical movement there. Again, we have no front to back movement here. The next step is to loosen the track rollers. You have 2 black tension screws here and here on either side of the gantry. We're going to loosen these just past the point of where you first feel tension. And we're going to do this for both sides of the gantry. Now we can engage our E-stop button at the front of the machine. This will cut power to all the motors, allowing us to turn the belt freely with no resistance. You can see our belt turns nice and easy. But we have a little bit of resistance towards the very back plate. This is most likely caused due to lead screw nut alignment. If you're confident that your lead screw nut is aligned and you didn't have much tension when moving the belt, you may want to skip ahead to the time listed above. The next step in our alignment process is the lead screw nut alignment. The first thing we're going to do is move our gantry 2 to 3 inches from the back plate. Now we're going to remove our belt completely by loosening the idler bearing to release the tension on the belt. With our belt removed, we're going to remove the front plate of the machine. We'll start with our machine board by removing these 2 screws. Now there's 2 screws on each side of the machine. We'll remove these 4 screws. And our front plate should come right off. With our front plate removed, we're going to use our Allen wrench to hold our pulley, and we're going to remove the pulley nut. Now we can loosen our set screw. Just enough to remove the pulley from the back. We're going to do this on both sides. With our pulleys removed, you should be able to slide the gantry forward and right out of the back plate. Now you may find that you have some trouble with your bottom plate sliding out. And a little trick we use here is we'll move to the front of the machine. And a pair of extra hands is always useful. We'll use a small bit of electrical tape. We'll make sure our bottom plate is in alignment. Now this electrical tape will keep the bottom plate from falling out when moving the gantry. Now we can slide our gantry out of the back plate without the plate falling off. We're going to loosen our lead screw nut. So this should be completely loose. The most important part here is we're going to put a small amount of pressure on the lead screw just until the lead screw touches the bottom of the track roller. We're going to put a small amount of pressure on the lead screw while we tighten the nut. We're going to repeat this process for both sides of the gantry. With both lead screw nuts aligned, our gantry should slide nicely into the back plate. And we're going to reattach our pulleys. And one of the most important things with the Y-axis alignment is this washer here. It's important to make sure your lead screw is set all the way back on the back plate. Can't go back any further there. So first our bearing. Washer with the shiny side out. And we want to align our recess with our set screw here. So our recess is facing up. Tighten your set screw. If you try to move the lead screw to the back plate, there's no wiggle in this pulley. We're going to do this for both sides. Bearing. washer with shiny side facing out, and our pulley. Now we can move on to our nut. Now this nut tightness can have an effect on the alignment as well, so we want to make sure we tighten this to the correct torque. To do that, we'll hold our pulley in place. And we're going to tighten our nut just until we feel that first bit of tension. And you can see we feel tension right there. So we're going to back it off just about a quarter turn. Now we still have no movement there. And we're able to turn our gantry nice and easy. Tighten our nut. Now we feel our first bit of tension, so we'll back it off a quarter turn. It's important to make sure that there's no lateral movement in your lead screw. To do this, we'll move our lead screw forward and backward while keeping an eye on this pulley here. There should be no lateral movement. You can see as we move our lead screw forward to back, our pulley's staying still. If you notice any lateral movement in your pulley, you want to readjust your set screw and pulley nut. We can reattach our front plate, and here's where it may help to have an extra set of hands. If we leave just a little bit of room between the front plate and the extrusion, we'll be able to pull off our black tape that helped us keep the bottom plate on. And we can go ahead and tighten down our front plate. With our front plate attached, we're going to adjust the tension screws on our rollers. We last left them just a finger tightness. So what we're going to do here is we're going to back off just a little bit. And when we first start to feel that tension, we're going to go a quarter turn and then a half a quarter. And we're going to do this for each tension screw. Quarter turn, half of a quarter. And that will be the perfect tension for your Y-axis rollers. Make sure to do this for both sides. Before we put our belt back on, we're going to align the gantry so that each arm is parallel. A little trick we use here, we have nickels. You can use quarters, pennies, anything that are uniform. And we're going to put them in between the back plate and the gantry arm. This is where it helps to have another set of hands. So we'll move each gantry separately. You should feel this turn nice and easy. If you feel some resistance or it feels like it's not turning easy, you want to go back and check some of the steps we've done before. You can also loosen your back plate so the plate moves up and down, and this will become a little bit easier to turn. Before we do this process though, we want to make sure that the back plate is tightened up. We'll put our two nickels on each side between the back plate and the gantry arms. Be careful not to place your nickels on the actual limit switch itself. So we'll place these just above the limit switch. And we'll turn our pulley until the nickels are seated between the back plate and the gantry arm. Now we can carefully put our belt back on. The key here is to make sure that when applying your belt, the pulleys don't turn accidentally. We'll set our belt tension. And here we have just a little bit of tension, but not too much. And we can move the gantry forward, and the nickel should fall out. Now turning this, you shouldn't have to put much force to turn it. If you feel a little bit of resistance, like I can feel a little bit right there, we're going to move on to loosening this back plate until there's no resistance. We'll loosen our back plate just so it has some movement up and down, but nothing back and forth. With our back plate loose, we're going to reattach our limit switches, starting with the emergency stop switch and our Y-axis limit switch. Now we're ready to dive back into UCCNC. We're going to reset our software, and we're going to try to home our Y-axis. Perfect. Now we can tighten our back plate. Just to finger tightness here, because we're going to make a few more adjustments before we tighten down. So this is just to where you feel that first resistance. And from here, we're going to manually run the machine about 3/4 of the axis. Now this is 100% jog speed. Now we're going to loosen the front plate just like we did the back plate. And we're going to run the Y-axis just at 10% into the very front. What this is doing is allowing itself to set its alignment where it wants to sit. If you're going at 100%, you might find you have some binding issues. So we can go ahead and finger tighten our front plate. Now we should be able to run the Y-axis the full length back to the back plate at 100% jog speed here. Keep an eye on your black wire harness and make sure it's laying flat. If this is coiled or kinked and pushing out through this, you will have a binding issue. So keep an eye on that. At this point, we were able to run the full length of the Y-axis with no binding. We can check the very ends just to make sure there's no binding, and we'll do the same for the front. At this point, we were able to jog the y-axis at 100% jog speed from front to back with no binding. If you haven't already, take a look at the links below to align your X and Z axes. All that's left to do is attach your belt cover and whiteboard or T-slot table. It's important to note not to force your white table or T-slot table into the extrusions, as this could throw off your alignment. I hope this video has made y-axis alignment a little easier. If you're still having trouble, you can always give us a call or email us here at support, and we'd love to walk you through it.